one more piece of the puzzle is trust.
Mhm.
I discovered back in 1982 this thing called trust. And it was because I was forced to do it by our government. Now, before then, I was buying properties by taking over existing financing. Back in the day, they had a thing called NENQ loan, non-escalating, non-qualifying financing. So you could step in for $45. You could take over somebody else's loan. It was above board. You could do it. And then they passed a law called the Garn St. Germain Federal Depository Institutions Act of 1982. And they said, you can't do that anymore. The banks now have the right to put the due upon sale clause in the mortgage. And I said, what? What is this all about? So I read the law, and way down, buried deep, 1701 J3D 81D, way down in there, they said exceptions.
Yeah.
And it said, except when someone places their property in trust, essentially for estate planning purposes, the lender is prohibited from calling the loan due. And I said, yeah, baby, count me in.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Profit First REI podcast. Have a special guest today, the one and only Lou Brown, which if you have been in real estate at all, you've probably heard his name. He might have even taught you at some point because he has been teaching people for a long time now. Lou, how long have you been teaching people in the real estate world?
Since 1987. As far as a large audience, and probably 1985 and the smaller audience at our local RIA.
Okay. Well, that's incredible. That's just the amount of knowledge over the years and that. So I'm excited to dive into this because in the Profit First REI podcast, we like, talking about how do people make more? How do they spend what they need to get where they want to be? And then what they get to keep. And Lou, you touch all of that. Like you've got so many, it was hilarious. If you're listening to this, I got on a call with Lou where we really dug into like what we're both doing. And Lou just kept going on and on of like all the different ways he can meet you as an investor with where you are, whether you're advanced and you have thousands of properties under your belt, or if you're just starting out. So I really like that, Lou, because you've seen so many things and helped so many people that you can meet them where they are. And I don't know, do you want to just touch on, where do you want to start? Like, do you want to start with that? It's like, I love everything that you gave, that you have the holistic model.
Well, it's an interesting thing because I'm a big believer, David, in buying, holding, and selling. And that means selling while I hold and holding while I sell. So if you think about flipping, I'm a flip slow guy. I'm a flip super slow guy because I love the idea of being able to buy a property right, buying it cheap, and buying it creatively. So I love the fact that I can work with the seller and I can take over their existing financing on the property, or that if they have equity, then I can pay them that equity over time. And the way I can structure that deal is totally by design because I do not go to banks and I do not qualify for loans. I never have in over 40 years of being in this business, and I never plan to. I figured out that I don't have to go to the bank and I don't have to qualify for loans. And I figured out that it was completely transferable. Other people could learn exactly to do the same thing. They don't have to worry about their credit. They don't have to worry about what their bank account looks like. They don't have to worry about all of this stuff that people typically worry about. So I say, no, you don't have to do it that way. There's another whole way. And I love doing what we do. And I've been able to challenge myself in over 1,000 transactions, never been to the bank, never qualified for a loan. And you can too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like you help a lot of people that have that growth mindset, that they want to do something more, they want to do something better, they want to go out there, and they don't have to have a lot of the things that a lot of people have that mentality, like you said, the bank's going to stop me, or I don't have money. Doesn't it take money to make money? Sounds like you can meet them with, okay, how can we get in here to this deal without having to go through a bank and without you having hundreds of thousands of dollars or even tens of thousands of dollars in the bank? So you can really help them from the beginning.
I love that you brought that up because I'm a big believer in systems, David.
Yeah.
I really believe that everything is duplicatable when you have a step-by-step process, a formula, and you know exactly what you're up to. And one of the things I learned from being an old time salesman is that when you have a presentation and you can tell people who you are and what you do and how you operate and how you can help and how you're different than everybody else and how much it's
Yeah.
going to cost them to sell their property and the whole thing, then you literally have a story to tell and you are able to not leave things out. I think it's very important when you're working with a seller, you have to go in loaded for bear. You have to go in planning to make money. You have to go in planning to make that deal. And
Yeah.
so we are planning for the seller to be the bank. I already have that preset in my thinking. And so I go prepared to look the part. And we are certified affordable housing providers. We go in fully logoed up.
Yeah.
We gift the seller a book. We give them my book called Doing Good While Doing Well, How Real Estate Investors Provide a Service and Make a Difference. And we tell them, what we're up to. And we lay the whole thing out and we tell them that they're going to be part of helping a deserving family end up with home ownership with my Path to Home Ownership program. So the sellers now are engaged in the process of being able to sell their house to someone that's going to make a difference in someone else's life. And therefore, they're making a difference as well. So I love incorporating the seller's thinking. We don't want to surgically remove them from their house. Grandma died in the back bedroom and the dog is buried in the backyard. And we just want them to understand that we're there and we can tie into the emotion of what they're feeling about selling their property.
I really like this. If you're just listening to this, he actually showed like a credibility. I'd call that probably like a credibility packet. Like he walks in there and it seemed like you could go through just like page after page, not just about you, but how this is helpful for them or like what are the hidden costs of real estate. Like if you go the traditional route, and it looked like that was a really good credibility package. If you're also just listening to this, he has a really nice red shirt on that says certified housing affordable housing provider. And then behind him, he was talking about a whole system that he teaches about pathway to home ownership, and which is, it sounds like, well, you're really educating the seller. You walk in with that book, which was awesome because he also showed a book that he walks in there and okay, I have to ask this, Lou, in a competitive market, if you or one of your students, one of the people that you're teaching, walk in with all that stuff, do they have a higher percentage of working with that seller than even someone who might be offering more money? Will that usually help them be more credible walking in?
David, the funny thing is, and we've proven this over and over and over again, literally we've had our competitors behind us and they come in and they make their pitch and the sellers will call us back because even though we may have offered less, they'll say, you know what, I want to work with you. And the reason they want to work with us is because what we're doing is helping a deserving family end up with home ownership. And that is part of our program. And so, they love the fact that we're doing something and they are doing something different as well. They're doing something that can help. I think it's a misnomer for people to think that the sellers don't care. And the other thing is that the sellers have options. Many sellers are not in trouble. They're not in distress. They do have equity. They do have the ability to wait. So one of the pitches that I make is, and we can pay you that in a single payment note as soon as our buyer completes buying the property. How does that sound? So literally the seller being willing to carry back the entire financing at zero interest and zero payments until we actually have our buyer purchase the property. So that's part of our overall strategy to absolutely be completely credible to the buyer, to the seller, and to the buyer as well.
Yeah, it's the buyer too.
So to speak, because that is another thing that we do, for people that are just getting started and really people that have been in the business forever. That's another aspect of what we do is we turn on the marketing machine. We call it the house monster. We turn on the house monster and we start generating leads of potential buyers. So typically when I'm going to visit with a seller, I've already got a buyer for that property. I've already determined how much down payment they have, how much they can afford on a monthly basis. I've already pre-vetted them. And now I know that I'm purchasing this property on purpose with purpose. I've got a customer already for it.
Yeah. And I think it's so the psychology of just walking in and having all those pieces that you do, where it's not just the physical pieces, but that you're able to walk them through the different strategies, or like you do have options, or like, here, let me talk to you about this system, the pathway to home ownership. And like you go in there, you're professional, but relatable. Where some of these times it's like, if someone comes into your house and they don't have the nicest get up and you're just like, they're getting out of their clunky, it's like, okay, what's going on here? Is this a real investor? Like they say they're an investor, but what's happening? Like, am I really going to be able to, sell my house to this person? Do they know what they're doing? Where if you walk in and you've got all these credibility pieces, plus you know what you've got different exit strategies than just beating them over the head with the cash hammer. It's like, here we go. Here's what we can do. I really like that approach, and I think that's a little different than what most people teach and what most people do. And you're helping them like have a very different experience from that first time they knock on that door, to go to that appointment, which I really like. So yeah, I
Yeah,
just wanted to point that
you
out.
got to think about it. Who thinks it's a good idea to show up at a seller's house in shorts and flip flops with a hat turned backwards and, hey, I'm going to buy your house? I mean, where's the credibility there? Now, if you're making a cash offer, you can get away with that.
Right.
Absolutely, you can get away
Yeah.
with that. But if you're making a creative offer, which is what I love to do. In fact, I've got 37 different ways that I can structure that transaction with that seller. So I'm not leaving. If they turn down my first offer, which is always a cash offer, then I'm going to show them right on the same cost to sell worksheet how I can increase my offer legitimately and transparently. I show them, look, I'm going to have to pay a hard money lender this much money. I would rather give it to you, and therefore I can increase my offer if we can go ahead and take over your existing financing. And so I'm showing the seller that there's something in it for them to
Mhm.
work with me,
Yep.
to give me the opportunity to take over their financing.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always taught, is that you have to show the seller what's in it for them. You don't just come out, hey, would you let me take over your existing financing? For God's sakes, nobody's going to agree with that.
Right. All right. I have to pause the episode real quick. If you're a real estate investor who's tired of wondering where your money is going or why you're closing deals but still feeling broke, you need to talk to Simple CFO. Simple CFO is Profit First certified and fully endorsed by Mike McAlowitz, the creator of Profit First himself. Our team specializes in helping real estate investors finally get control of their cash flow so you keep more money, you pay yourself consistently, and build a business that doesn't run on chaos. We'll help you implement the Profit First system the right way, set up the financial processes you've been missing, and give you a dedicated fractional CFO who actually understands investing and keeping track of your numbers on flips, wholesales, rentals, private lending, all of it. So if you want predictable profit instead of living deal to deal, head over to simplecfo.com and book your financial clarity call today. That's simplecfo.com. Stop living in confusion and start keeping the money you work so hard to earn. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, exactly. No, this is good. I really like that. And going in with that mentality and opening up that door and being different from the very get go when you're talking to that seller, which, okay. So we've talked about this and you walking into the seller's room and being able to have 37 different ways of like being able to help them. But then to a very new investor, that sounds like, oh my gosh, 37 ways. Like, how am I going to do this? You take people through this process, right? And like you teach whether they've done 1,000 deals or 0 deals, like where they can start to do these types of systems and processes.
Yeah, I've got a training. It's a 3-day training. It's called Millionaire Jumpstart,
Awesome.
millionairejumpstart.com. And one of the things I teach people, and I actually give them this as part of the training, is this cost to sell worksheet. Now,
Yeah.
what's really interesting about how we work with sellers is they actually help us fill that out. So I tell them, great news. I'm empowered to make you an offer today. However, I have to calculate what it's going to cost us to sell your home. Would you help me out here? And I hand them the sheet and they actually fill in the numbers. As we're going through, I'm explaining
Yeah.
every one of these costs to sell, and I'm along the way, getting them to agree, hey, wouldn't you agree that these would be your costs as well when you go to sell the property if you sell it the traditional way? And so then we get down to a bottom line cash number. If they don't like that cash number, then I show them right on the same sheet how I can increase my offer. So they love it, and
Yeah.
I'm able to win, because if they take the cash offer, I'm happy with that because I've already built in my costs. I've already built in my 5 points and 15% for a hard money lender. And if they like that cash offer, we're done because I'm going to get the money from hard money. However, if they don't like that number, I'm not done yet. I'm going to go back on that same sheet and show them how there's something in it for them for me taking over their existing financing.
So, is there a type of seller you don't like working with, or that it doesn't make sense for you to work with?
No, there's really not. David, that's an interesting question. We even have what we call our $10 house program,
Yeah.
where we literally buy houses. Sellers pay us to buy their house. When we get down to this
Hmm.
bottom line, sometimes it's a negative number. And then we talk to the seller about, can you handle that? And if they say no, I say, how much of that can you handle? And they give me a number. And then we work out a payment plan on the balance. But yes, people will sell you their house and they will pay you to get rid of their house because they're overfinanced once you take into account all the costs to sell.
Mm.
So it's definitely an opportunity. So no, there's really no seller I'm not willing to work with or that I'm not attracted to. Uh,
Yeah.
Obviously, people that are in distress is what everybody's going for. And personally, I like to work with people that do have options and can be the bank and can allow me to take over their existing financing. So I'm kind of the antithesis of what everybody's running for.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then, what a seller that you would not want to work with is someone who could sell on the traditional market through a realtor, or do you still like walking into their house because you're like, I have options, and that still might not be their best is to go through a realtor?
Well, actually, that's exactly what we use this presentation
Presentation
kit
for?
for,
Yeah.
is to educate the
Yeah.
seller on the process. We literally go through the options that they have. They can go ahead and list it the traditional way, and this is what you're going to be faced with. And we educate them all the way through the presentation. If they choose to go that route, that is one of the options. And if they choose to get rid of it today, good news, we can make you an offer today.
Okay, very cool. So that presentation kit is very multi-functioning. It's like got a lot of different, not only the content in it, but like how you even present it and how you walk in with it separates you. And honestly, Lou, this is something that I really like about your program, which I'm seeing physically right now, is that you have something physical for them to walk in with. It seems like you give everyone this template if they work with you, so that way they aren't going into this just like I've got a contract that I got from my coach, and hopefully I can get this thing signed, today. Where you're like, here, this is how we're going to walk in and have this conversation.
You're right. I like to be a professional, and I
Yeah.
like to teach that you should show up as a professional, because we're going to ask the seller to do some very unusual things. And so we want them to feel comfortable and confident that we know what we're talking about. And it's
Mm.
one of the reasons that every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, I am available for my clients, for my students to be able to learn. And, they come to this every Sunday night. They've got deals that they're working. They've got properties they put under contract. They use my purchase and sale agreement, all the things that I teach them at the Millionaire Jumpstart.
Okay, and they have access to you there.
Yeah, baby.
Wow, yeah, baby. See, this is also where you're gonna get someone fun, but then you have access to Lou. That is so rare. It feels like these days, like Lou is not unlocked behind this door. Like you have to pay the $4 million investment. Like to be able to get to Lou. It's like if you do the jump start and you're in the program. Like that's where you can have access on the Sunday nights. But you have lots of ways to work with you. You have lots of different programs and offerings because when we were talking, you really can, like I keep saying, meet anyone where they are. So would that Millionaire Jumpstart be the best place to start? Or like, where would you send people to be like, hey, if you want to check Lou Brown out, what's a good place?
There's a number of options. I've got my buy, hold, sell book.
Mm,
That is my magnus opus. Really, it just takes you soup to nuts through the entire business model. We do have a very unique business model. I'm going to tell people, and my sub headline here is cash now, cash flow, and cash forever. And so the idea is that you've really got a way that you can do this business and you can do it highly successfully. So I give away a lot of nuggets in there, and then I bring it to life at the Millionaire Jumpstart. So that's a 3-day live training that I do 3 to 4 times per year, someplace in the country. And you can go to millionairejumpstart.com to get more information about that. And it definitely lays out the entire business model, kind of from start to finish. Like you said, meeting people wherever they're at. So I work with a lot of folks that are real estate agents, mortgage brokers, real estate investors. I just had somebody join me recently. He has got 175 doors. And he said, Lou, you have filled all the spaces in my business that I know I've got holes that I really need some help with. And I'm seeing an entire business model. He's scrapping everything he's done. He's scrapping his bylines and everything else, and then the logos, and he's completely adopting our certified affordable housing provider brand. And that's one of the things we do offer folks, is to really just become part of us and adopt our brand, really get coached up on and trained on how to do this business the right way. Helped a lot of people to become millionaires and multimillionaires. And I'm very proud of that. It's, you said it's kind of surprising that people get me, but I found out that I had a love for teaching folks.
mm.
Now, I am a truly blessed man. There is no question on this. Thank you, God, for everything, because it has been amazing what real estate has given myself, my family, the opportunity to travel all over the world. I'm going to Thailand next year. I'm taking a whole group of my students with me, and we're just going to have an amazing time. And these are the kind of things that really can be delivered from this great game called real estate. And it's, to have a better life than the one you've got. So I love that process. And I love teaching old dogs new tricks, when it's real estate agents or real estate investors, that I can say, hey, let me show you this trick. People that are landlords, for example. So they've perfected the buying right, buying cheap part of the model. And so they're hanging on to these properties for dear life. And they've got tenants, toilets, trash, trauma. They've got all the stuff they got to deal with as being a landlord. And I said, I really hate landlording. I don't want to be a landlord when I already had like 20 or 25 properties. I said, this is not fun. I'm not enjoying this. And so I said, how do I get on the same side of the table with the tenant? How do I engage, enroll, inspire these kind of people and have them want a better life, have them have the opportunity for a better life? So that's when I flipped the model and I said, we can offer the path to home ownership. We can give deserving families the opportunity at home ownership, regardless of credit or financial background. And that was kind of like when I set up my whole plan, my mission, everything. This was back in 2012. I'm proud to say that we have licensees of our system in all 50 states now, multiple foreign countries as well, that they've really adopted who we are and what we do, and they've incorporated into their own business. Now, every business is independently owned and operated, so we don't get a piece of the action per se, but we do give them the tools, the training, the technology, and the team to be able to duplicate really what we're doing in our own business. We do this every day. This is what we do. This is who we are. And so we're giving people the opportunity to simply duplicate what we're doing.
That's awesome. No, I love that. And it sounds like millionairejumpstart.com is one place. And then you also brought up that book. Do you have a way they can get that book, or the way, how can they get a hold of that? On
Absolutely. Now,
Amazon?
there's one more thing that you said you wanted me to hit on, and that
Yeah.
was the keeping what you create,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Keeping what you create.
One more piece of the puzzle is trust.
Mm,
I discovered back in 1982 this thing called trust. And it was because I was forced to do it by our government. Now, before then, I was buying properties by taking over existing financing. Back in the day, they had a thing called NENQ loan, non-escalating, non-qualifying financing. So you could step in for $45. You could take over somebody else's loan. It was above board. You could do it. And then they passed a law called the Garn St. Germain Federal Depository Institutions Act of 1982. And they said, you can't do that anymore. The banks now have the right to put the due upon sale clause in the mortgage. And I said, what? What is this all about? So I read the law, and way down, buried deep, 1701 J3D 81D, way down in there, they said exceptions.
Yeah.
And it said, except when someone places their property in trust, essentially for estate planning purposes, the lender is prohibited from calling the loan due. And I said, yeah, baby, count me in. I said, I want to learn about trust. I went all over the country. I worked with 20 different attorneys. I put together a whole plan for all 50 states. And now one of the things I teach is that you should have every single thing you own in trust, and you should have each asset separated from one another. So if there's any liability on one, it's not going to infect or affect the rest of your properties. And so I teach them how to own these properties, but better than that, how to set them up, starting with their own house, how they can put their house in trust, how they can put their vehicle in trust, how they can put their bank account in trust, and any other assets that they might have, and put them in separate trusts. And I provide all the paperwork to them, and I provide the step-by-step processes and procedures to do that. I have an ultimate trust master class that I do, to give people the opportunity to really be able to learn that, number one, learn where they are burying the bones, because you could turn it over to an attorney, but good grief, you don't even know what they did. So it's important for people to, I believe, in my opinion, it's important for people to learn this, learn what to do, learn how to do it, and then learn that they can do it ongoingly. So as they acquire assets, they can be putting it into trust as they move forward. So I think it's an important thing to get the big picture of what you're up to. You want to buy right, buy cheap. You want to hold while you sell and sell while you hold, and you want to protect all that you create. So those are the big things that we cover during that Millionaire Jumpstart.
Yeah, that's really good. And this is where, if you're going to listen to me and to the Profit First REI podcast and listen to the book and, all this stuff and read the book, you want to keep what you're making. So if you're going to go out there and if you're going to get the systems and you're going to do what Lou tells you, and you're going to walk in and you're going to have the credibility packet, and you're going to be able to get more contracts and get more houses that you're able to work with and sellers that you're working with, you want to make sure you're keeping it at the end of the day. And this is where Lou has gone down extensively down this road to making sure that you can keep it as well. And then he utilizes the power of trust. And a lot of people hear the word trust and they're like, oh, that's something I'll need one day, or like when I get more assets and all this. It's like, no, that's what if you have one property that you're buying, it's like, we got to learn the right things from the very beginning, because when is your hair on fire? At the wrong times, right? And it's like, we want to protect us and put that, asbestos way in advance versus now, like that's where we got to protect ourselves. We want to do fire prevention, not fire damage control. And it's like, this is where you can have that with the trust factor with Lou. And Lou teaches this. And like, he's one of the people that have been doing this for a long time. And this is not a new thing to Lou. This is where, honestly, by now it's old hat to Lou. And that's where you want teachers, where it is, where it's like, this is where he knows it like a glove and can teach you and can make sure you're setting it up right. Because if you don't do it the right way, that's a good way to lose the things that you want to protect. If you don't have the ironclad agreements and something you got off of Chat GPT or some, like LegalZoom or something like that, you need to make sure that you're doing this correctly and with the right people. And Lou is one of those people out there that is really helping people in this aspect. So Lou, thanks for bringing that up, because I don't want them just making it. I want to make sure they're keeping it as well too. Okay. Anything else?
I want to give everybody an opportunity to get my Buy, Hold, Sell book.
Yeah,
so
the magnum opus here.
Yeah, baby. You can go to streetsmartinvestor.com/BHS book. That stands for buy, hold, sell, BHS book. And enjoy, and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Love to see you at the next Millionaire Jumpstart. We have some amazing experiences when we're together. I definitely encourage you to get the VIP experience because we go to dinner together and we have a great time, and just a great opportunity to advance your business. If you're just getting started, if you've been in the business forever, definitely have something for everybody that's there. Real estate agents, mortgage brokers, real estate investors, they're all in our world and in our mix.
Yeah, well, this is really good. And to recap, some of the things I took away the most from this is really separating yourself from that very first interaction, whether it's on the phone and being professional or walking in and having the credibility packet, having the book, like having the different things where you can help that seller with where they are. And that's a big thing that Lou provides. Another thing that I really liked is that you have access to Lou. It's like he actually gets on and every single week is with the people that are a part of his circle and his community, which is really cool. And then obviously he's got these things that no matter where you are on your journey, if you have 175 doors like that one guy, or if you're just starting to get your first door, that millionairejumpstart.com is a good place. But then he also gave you the book. Like, anyone can read a book. So I want you to go out there and get his book to be able to say, okay, I really like this. What's that next step? If you need more of that, he's even got a book for you to be able to say, do I like this? And honestly, if you like what you've heard here, take that step and go in person. There's nothing like meeting someone in person at an event. That's where Millionaire Jumpstart, you can get there. That first one. And then streetsmartinvestor.com/BHS book, which is still up there if you're on YouTube right now. Now, if you're like that and you're like, this is great, I'm already down the road, I'm in my business, but my hair is on fire, remember that this is where we help at simplecfo.com, making sure that you not only are making it, but keeping it. If you're really good at spending the money in your business, but you're like, where did all the money go? We want to make sure you know exactly where the money's going. So that's simplecfo.com with our team, with our bookkeeping and CFO services. Thank you so much for listening. And Lou, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your knowledge. And then also I love this professionalism that you bring to this space and how you're teaching it in a very different manner. And then the access that you give. So Lou, thank you so much again.
Thank you, my brother. I so much appreciate being on your podcast and being able to share out to your folks. It's been awesome.
Awesome. And then remember, if you're listening, make profit a habit in your business. That's it for today's show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share this episode. If you're serious about financial systems and keeping more of your profit, visit simplecfo.com to take your free discovery call today.